Good evening and welcome to ATV. I'm Suad Asfour, your host. This evening we will continue with Dr. Hatim to discuss more about his life in Palestine and his perspective on the Palestinian life in the State of Israel. Dr. Hatim was born in Palestinian village of Araba, Fil Jalil. He left Araba in 1960 to study in the United States and completed his degree in medicine and public health from Harvard in 1970. He then returned to Galilee, Palestine, and was the first and only resident physician in the area of 50,000 Palestinian citizens of Israel. In his new book, he sets himself a task of telling the story of his village to the world, in the hope of breaking the imposed silence and isolation of the Palestinian community in Israel. Hello, Doctor, and thank you for coming back to our show.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Doctor. It's May. And May 15 is, we always remember Nakba. And
Yes.
This is something really bad memory for all the Palestinian people. And I remember in your book, you mentioned, in your first book, you talked about it. Can you tell us a little bit more and give our viewer a little information? What is Nakba?
Okay, Nakba in Arabic means catastrophe, as you well know. And it refers really to the major loss not only of property and loss of the sense of belonging to a nation and being driven out of your traditional homeland. That is for the 85% of the Palestinians who were physically driven out of Palestine and what became Israel. Now, that, of course, for us, the 15% who stayed in Israel stayed mainly in their homes, but again, there is within that 15%, about a third of those were internally displaced. And just so you get the sense of what the life of this group, this subgroup is like, these internal displaced Palestinians who are citizens of Israel since day one. Israel defines them, and the legal term for them is present absentees. It's a contradiction in terms, but they are present as citizens of Israel, but they are absent in terms of their owning their property. So they lost their homes and lost their land, lost their bank accounts. All of that reverted to the state. Why? Because on a certain day or on a certain specific date, they were not present in their homes. And so this is gives you a little bit of a feeling for the group's situation. And since 1948, I mean, I cannot, of course, speak for the Palestinian diaspora. I cannot speak for members of the Palestinian refugee community in all over the world, actually, but more in the neighboring states, in Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and so on. So I'm speaking essentially about the Palestinian minority within Israel.
So on that 1948, on that time, at the time of the Nakba, 531 Palestinian homes were demolished.
531 Palestinian communities, villages and towns.
About 750,000 people or so
were driven out.
They were just now scattered everywhere.
That's right. And the remainder, as I said, 1/3 were internally displaced. And we became Israeli citizens. We were given the right to vote. And with that, the state really with the dictatorship of the majority, it proceeded to take our land from us. We now, 20% of the total population of Israel, we own about or less than 3% of the land in Israel. And we do not have access to the remainder, to 93% of the land of the total space in Israel. 93% of it is either state land or belongs to the Jewish National Fund. And as such, we, the Palestinian Arabs, citizens of Israel, do not have access to that. That's for the exclusive use of the Jewish people, and in perpetuity. I mean, we have no hope of owning any of that as long as the situation continues as is. And so, after the Nakba, and I remember the events of the Nakba when my village surrendered to the Jewish Haganah forces. The state, after it was established, proceeded really to deprive us of our rights to occupation, our rights to movement, because they imposed a military rule, a draconian really control of everybody's life, to where you didn't dare even talk to your neighbor because somebody may hear what you say and report it to the military government and so on.
Yeah.
So,
I remember I read something in your chief complaint book. You were talking about we Palestinians are born with sense of injuries, pride.
Injured pride,
and
yes.
how did that affect you as growing up there, in your childhood?
Well, you see, what lots of people, I'm talking about the American public, what they don't realize is that we live in totally segregated communities, essentially. So we go to schools that are segregated schools, and we have different educational systems, as I said. And the military government, and after it, the regular government, the secret police, continued to interfere with the educational system in our communities. Till today, you cannot really become an employee of the Ministry of Education if the Shin Bet, meaning the secret police, doesn't approve your appointment.
They teach you Hebrew, right, in school?
We of course, we are taught in Arabic, but we start Hebrew after the 3rd grade. And so we grow up learning Hebrew, and I speak Hebrew very well, of course. What is a little bit uncomfortable is, for example, in high school, I had to pass an exam with the Tanakh, which is the Old Testament in Hebrew, because it is part of the the Hebrew literature that we were taught. So I had to really learn about or to study the Old Testament in Hebrew, in the original Hebrew text. And but no Quran was taught, and no Bible for the Christians was taught for.
Wow. So the Palestinian Arab citizen of Israel, do they always feel that sense of not belonging or no equality?
Well,
living in the same country.
No, of course that's true, and as I said earlier, you are made to feel that with the at least 50 different laws that are specifically designed to disadvantage me and to tell me you don't really belong here. And that's really the message. Growing up and surviving and living in Israel, you get to know that very, very clearly, that there's a message that you are not, this is not your country. And also at the same time that this is, you are told or you are educated to feel that this is not your country, at the same time actually you are not really encouraged or allowed through the usual channels and educational channels. You are not allowed to really know and practice your culture. You know, all of the classical Arab poetry and the classical literature and so on. Anything that has a positive sense of pride in it is not included. It's not allowed even.
Take it away from you. It's taken away from you.
That's the story of our life, and so we live clearly as second-class citizens, and I think it is inculcated in the educational system, and also we are made to feel not only that we are second-class citizens in terms of our individual rights or our communal rights and so on, but we are made to feel second grade in our bodies even. I mean, in the Hebrew in Israel, a bad job that's done, it's called avodat Arabim. This is a piece of Arab work. I mean, that's a derogatory term. The term Arab or Palestinian is viewed, in reality, in Israel, is viewed as a derogatory term, has a negative connotation. And to live with that all your life, it's not easy.
It's not easy, but you eventually adjust with it. Well, what about they have like 13 members from the Arab in the Knesset? Well, what kind of rights? How did they become? How did they have that much rights to be member of the Knesset of the Israel?
First of all, the member of the Knesset, they can talk all they want. Okay, as the term I used earlier, it's really there is the dictatorship of the majority. The state defines itself exclusive of us. Really, it's the state of the Jewish nation, and even when there is a law that's proposed that's supposed to be passed probably very soon. The Arab members of the parliament, they have never been, since Israel was established, they have never been considered to form part of the coalition that runs the country. They have never been granted the status of the official opposition party in the parliament, because they were divided and grew. Now, after this last election, we have 13 members. We still do not really form any pressure or any instrument that is efficient to any sense in convincing the state to get our rightful share of budgets or rightful share of means of the cake,
or helping other Palestinians in Gaza or other in the West Bank. So you guys, you don't help them with anything, basically. Whoever members at the Knesset, they don't help with anything.
Well, they are in terms of the foreign policy of the state, there is no place for our opinion whatsoever. I know the new reality with 13, I think it's the third largest party in Israel, this United Arab List. You would expect that they will have some influence, and I know the head of the party, a young man named Ayman Audi. He's a very decent person. He has lived all his life, of course, born and raised in Israel, and he educated in Israel. He's a lawyer by profession, and he has it in his mind that he's going to really work from within the system to change things. I wish him luck. I don't think that is really all that possible.
At least he's trying.
That he's trying, and he's trying very hard, and he is a very intelligent and sincere young man. And he's hopefully he will somehow reach to a part of the Israeli hegemony and affect their opinion. But that's a long plan.
Yeah.
I think
That's going to be a long process.
there's going to be a long process and appeal. There's, I mean, about this, the influence of the Palestinian vote, the Palestinian citizens of Israel, they're voting on the affairs of the state and on their own affairs.
And their votes count? Basically, all the votes will count?
Yes, they do, but they have very little effect at the end. And I'm leading up to a quote that I heard from Azmi Bishara at the time. He said, you know, they gave us the vote and they took our land. I'm willing to settle without the vote. I'll give back the vote, give me back my land.
Oh,
I mean, this
wow. That's interesting. That's nice.
It is, of course, a sterile argument at the end,
Yeah.
but I am convinced, and let me quote here another friend, Gideon Levy. He's a columnist that writes for the Haaretz, which is the most decent Hebrew paper in the country. Gideon Levy really, in his lectures, and I heard him more than once, outlines three aspects of the Israeli public at large. First of all, it is true that most Israelis hold themselves above the rest of humanity. We are the Jewish brain. It is the chosen people. And this is not in terms of really declaration, but in terms of inner belief.
Mentality.
That is his belief, his understanding that as you said, in terms of the mentality and the inner sense about themselves, they believe that they are a cut above. Okay, that's one. Secondly, to justify what the Israeli public and the Israeli government and the system has done to the Palestinians, and not only the Palestinians inside, we are perhaps better off than the rest of the Palestinians, but what they have done to the Palestinians refugees by kicking them out and never allowing them to come back, what they have done to the Palestinians in the occupied territories, that Israel or the Israelis have to psychologically and mentally devalue, dehumanize the Palestinians to such a degree that the Palestinian, in the general understanding of most Israelis, and it's going from bad to worse actually with the right shift.
But where is human rights and where is United Nations?
Exactly. So I'm still with Gideon Levy's explanation that the Israelis really dehumanize the Palestinians so they can treat him as a nothing, as a below standard. And with that, at the end, Israel will never change from within. And with those three elements, he really sees no way out except by Israel being forced from the outside. And that is where I go back and mention the BDS movement, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions, which is gaining strength. It is at this stage actually snowballing. It started 10 years ago, and it is catching on much faster than the anti-apartheid movement ever went against the apartheid system in South Africa. This movement is moving much faster than the parallel movement at that time against apartheid in South Africa. So there is hope, and I think it is through this dream of a single state. We don't want No Palestinian really want to throw Israelis in the sea, as everybody
Used to say.
says. But at any rate, at the end, we are destined to live together. And in my opinion, we, the Palestinian minority in Israel, the Palestinian citizens of Israel, by our existence and being there as citizens of Israel, we are destined to force democracy on Israel at a price of very uncomfortable price for us. But
and they always say there's democracy in Israel, but actually there's no democracy.
It's definitely democracy for the Jewish
for
people,
only the Israeli
if you are
people,
Jewish.
not
Yeah.
the rest,
But
not the Palestinians.
if you are not Jewish, that doesn't work for you.
Okay, so they've been violating human rights over and over again since 1948, since Nakba. So what is United Nations doing about it? And what's the hope that there will be pressure from United States? Or what's the hope that someday something will change?
Okay, trying to put all of our hope on the decisions of the United Nations is a false hope altogether. I am in no position really to speak to that issue, but in terms of the Palestinian citizens of Israel, the United Nations has nothing to do with us. We are part of Israel, and we have a vote in Israel, so on. It is a democracy. This is what the stand of the United Nations is. Israel is a democracy. You have your vote. Go and elect the government you like, and that's all the United Nations can say. There is no interference ever from the United Nations structure. Now, about the American system, of course, the American government and the Congress have been completely backing Israel since its establishment, essentially. And I don't think that is going to change from above. I mean, it's not going to be that the American Congress going to decide to back away from its support to Israel. Therefore, the really hope is that it has to be a grassroots movement. It has to be from the public at large, and the people who care and who dream about a more just world, who hope for equality and for justice around the world, and not only at home here. Those are the wider public in the United States, and it is hoped in Europe as well. And the strategy of those who are behind the BDS movement and the hope of all of us is that we convince the general public in the United States about the truth and about the best future for Israel as well as for Palestine. There is no way around it. It has to be a peaceful resolution, and all of these negotiations have led to nothing, and therefore we have to change the outline of our dream instead of two states and all of that, which is now has become a joke actually. We are the new dream, and there are not enough, but there are a few members of the Israeli public, especially among the academicians and intellectuals who back this movement. And it is hoped that the message will reach the general public, who will boycott and will take the needed steps to force Israel and to force the American government to deal with the subject in a more humane and more just and more equal manner than they have done so far. And that's, again, going back to my book, the Chief Complaint, my collection of stories. I'm hoping that the reader will find the stories interesting, and that people will read these stories not because of their sympathy to the Palestinians, although we spoke about that a lot, but to read these stories hopefully because they are readable, because they are interesting stories, because they are human stories, and between the lines pick up the reality that we live as Palestinian citizens of Israel. This is my hope, and I'm hoping that people, I'm not out to get rich from the book. What I want people is to buy a copy and give it to everybody around you to read.
Right.
I'm not interested in selling books. What I want to is that people get a sense of what is going on in Israel and Palestine. Hopefully, this will be a good education about my community, as I said, the Palestinian citizens of Israel. And the book is available, of course, on Amazon, and it's available also as on electronic copy.
Well, that's great. I'm hoping this book will help in breaking the silence and the isolation for the Palestinian community in Israel. And we hope all these massacres will stop, and all the ethnic cleansing they've been doing since 1948. There has been over 31 massacres, and a lot of people died. So we're hoping all this will stop, and this will open up some eyes and teach people what's going on up there and put a stop for it.
Well, thank you very much for that, and for having me with you.
Thank you so much. It was our pleasure. Thank you, Doctor, and I wish you
You're
good
most
trip.
welcome. Thank you.
And I hope you make it back and safe.
Thank you very much.
And good luck to you.
Thank
you for watching. We'll see you next week. Good night. Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah,